Hello YouTube, we are back with the Video Game House channel, and this is Sylveon. With the release of Surging Sparks, they released a whole bunch of new decks, which you guys are going to be seeing on this channel in just a couple of days. But the number one most requested on my channel was Sylveon EX. Now, if you guys haven't seen the gimmick with Sylveon EX, it's that its first attack is a Psychic Energy and 2 colorless energies called Magical Charm, doing 160 damage. This attack also makes it so that the defending Pokemon does 100 less damage next turn. So, this does not matter if Sylveon gets switched out and a new Pokemon comes in, the opposing Pokemon's overall damage is minus 100. So your opponent has to switch out in order for them to do maximum damage. Definitely have to read the card. We found that out during the stream. Sylveon's second, more powerful, totally unfair move is Angelite. For a Water, Lightning, and Psychic Energy, you target 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon and put them back into the owner's deck, shuffling everything. Energies, tools, the Pokemon themselves, and all of its evolutions all will go back into the deck, setting your opponent back so many turns. In this video, you will see Angelite be used in a number of ways. The rest of the deck may seem very similar to other things that you guys have seen before. The Gardevoir Kirlia engine, where you can get the free Psychic Energies from Gardevoir, the Drifloon and the Bravery Charm, so you can set up Drifloon to swing for 300, and then the rest of it is normal items and tools and supporters that you would see in just about every deck nowadays, mostly staples. The wonderful combo is obviously the new Eevee that came out with Surging Sparks that states if it's in the active, it can evolve the same turn it gets into the active. So if it just got played this turn, switches into the active, you can evolve it into Sylveon in the same turn. Use Gardevoir to put a Psychic Energy on the Sylveon, or 3 Psychic Energies in order to use Magical Charm. Or you can set up a Psychic Energy, use Crispin, get the other 2 colored energies out of your deck and put them on Sylveon. Or you can use Arven in order to find the Sparkling Crown and an Earthen Vessel, or any way of getting your energies set up so a Sylveon can swing with that Angelite. The deck runs 2 Boss's Orders, and it also runs 2 Counter Catchers. And the idea is obviously your opponent's big Pokemon they want to use to hit you is going to be in the active, so if you get behind, you can use Counter Catcher. If you are already in the lead, you can set yourself further ahead to stop your opponent from even trying to make a comeback by just going Boss's Orders or Counter Catcher to bring your opponent's best Pokemon back to the bench and a bad Pokemon up to the active. And then you'll hit him with Angelite. Angelite, unlike many of the other Terra moves, does not have the downside of discarding any energy. Its only negative text is that you're not allowed to use Angelite next turn. So you hit him with Angelite, but you still have the energy to use Magical Charm. So you can still Angelite, Magical Charm, where your opponent then cannot hit you or hit you for 100 damage less, and then Angelite again. So you can just keep cycling it. So if they start trying to set anything up, you can stop it. This thing is incredibly dangerous against level 2 decks. Obviously, your opponent needs to evolve things. If they can't remove the Sylveon in the same move that they evolve things, well, Angelite will send that stuff right back to the deck and have them start over. It also is very good because it does have a stall engine as well due to the Magical Charm, allowing you to hit for 160, minusing 100 damage back to you, and then swinging back. And you can still attack with Drifloon for a big surprise damage with 1 Drifloon Bravery Charm, putting 5 energies on the from the Gardevoir onto the Drifloon and still getting enough attack damage to hit big Pokemon for a single prize Pokemon. So it's a really, really strong deck. Let's get on into the games and show you guys how it's played. Alright, everybody. This is my second time recording this because I recorded the whole damn thing and then realized I forgot to hit the button. So, now I remember a little bit more, I guess. Anyway. So, just so you guys are aware, these guys down here are all representative of people who are actually in my stream. These videos are all taken from my stream that we do on every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, where we build decks or we challenge tournaments. If you guys like Pokemon TCG Live content, absolutely hit up my channel. You guys want to learn, if you guys want to have some good chances of getting some free codes in order to update your own decks on your own account, feel free to join us every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, starting as early as 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So today we're going over Sylveon. Sylveon Angelite is easily one of my favorite lists that came out of Surging Sparks. You guys will be seeing a whole lot of videos coming out pretty quickly, most likely day after day, with new lists or ideas for you guys to take a look into and maybe build on your own. This is our first matchup with the very unrefined version of the deck. So what you guys saw before was the final iteration of the deck after testing and testing and testing and building and building and building of trying to shape and reshape the way that the deck looked and worked and felt. You're going to be seeing a lot of cards in the early games like the Mukidoris, like Fluttermane, that are not going to be in later builds, and I will try my best to explain each matchup and what we can do to emphasize how useful the deck list is. In our first matchup, we're up against Regi-Bolt Ogerpon, which, with Angelite being able to send your opponent's big Pokemon back into the deck along with their tools and their energies and not letting them get access to the energies again, it feels very, very strong based upon good or bad outcomes of possible coin flips or searching of certain cards. I feel the deck probably has a good 60-40 ratio against it because you are able to still get one-shotted by a Raging Bolt, but you also have that ability of removing Raging Bolt, removing energies. You can evolve Eevee on turn 1. It's all things you can absolutely do in order to slow your opponent down from taking out certain things. Multiple Arvens in a row, like you guys may have seen while paying attention to the video, can get you all of the parts you need. You know, I need a Gardevoir here. I need an Eevee evolution Sylveon here. So that way we can get, we have the Crystal. So if we have 2 energies, Gardevoir can give 1 energy, I can manual another, and then Crystal counts as the 3rd. So now Sylveon is able to use Angelite. We need Counter Catcher, which we run in this, so that way we can get everything to work. 1 energy on Ralts, 1 energy on Sylveon. We discarded using Kirlia to find Gardevoir. We had the Sylveon, we got the water energy. This turn had a lot going on, but it worked in favor of everything. We gave a Squawk ability with Counter Catcher, so we can put back both Raging Bolts. The way that you want to try to run the deck is, even if you're losing early game, you can't give up the match. Because it's very easy, like you guys just saw, I did 37 moves right there, and got a Gardevoir on the board, a Sylveon with a tool, and the energies necessary to use its better move, and a 1 out of 2 of my counter catchers in the list that was able to set up a perfect turn. And that was in the early game. The early game, using Angelite forces your opponent to use a lot of resources in order to get those resources that you put back into their deck out of their deck and back on the board. If they use all those resources, then they don't have them in the late game. We have that wonderful card Iono as a 4-of. So we're able to let our opponent take 2, 3, 4, even up to 5 prizes. We don't want to go up that 5, but we can get our opponents to go taking 3, 4, 5 prize cards, and it's not a bad thing because Angelite is still a playable move. We hit our opponent with an Iono to bring them down to 3 prizes, or 3 cards in their hand, or 2 cards in their hand, or 1 card in their hand even, and then you hit them with Angelite to force their hand to be 1 or 2 cards, and they have no resources because they've been using them all day to counter all game in order to counter your Angelite, or they have no resources because you've Iona'd them to 1 or 2 cards and you've gotten rid of their big attacker. This deck works super well against evolution-based decks. Basic decks are a little bit harder to control, but as you can see, we've now used Angelite 2 times to remove 2 Raging Bolts from the board and back into our opponent's deck. Our opponent starts getting desperate, so he has to actively set up a Burst Roar, which, if you've ever played Teal Mask Ogerpon and Raging Bolt, you never want to use Burst Roar. After turn 1, Burst Roar is just, you already know you're in a bad position. So we know we're going to be using Iono here because he Burst Roars into 6. We don't want him to have those 6, so we take some better stuff. Yeah, that energy sticker, that doesn't exist. We're ignoring that. It was a placeholder card that I thought maybe it could be useful. It was bad. We tried something. It was stupid. We took it out of the deck immediately. But now, like I explained during the deck profile, Sylveon can use Magical Charm since it used Angelite last turn. Magical Charm says the defending Pokemon does 100 less damage to Sylveon. Unfortunately, if they don't draw, or fortunately, if they draw a bad hand, that minus 100 could really matter. Unfortunately for us, they were still able to basically get everything they need. So, yeah. They needed 5 energies to do 350, but because of the attack, it's 250, and I have some damage counters on me because Munkidori couldn't remove them. So, unfortunately, he was able to get everything he needed. Funny, though, is that he kept the active Regi-Bolt on the board, and he's now down to a singular card in his hand because of our Iono. Like I said, you can let them take a couple of prizes. And our Gardevoir can knock out his only Pokemon that has an energy right now, and we still have access to everything else we need. We are able to use Super Rod to get Eevee back into the deck. We drew into a Buddy-Buddy Poffin to get the Eevee out of the deck. Like I already said, Eevee can evolve the turn it goes into the active from its ability. So we could have evolved it if we wanted to right into the active. Didn't, but, you know, we could have. It's just good. It's a good move. Our opponent sees that he is down to 2 prizes on our side over here. So he puts in the Radiant Greninja because it technically protects him. We were going to try and find Boss's Orders. If we found it, Boss's Orders would be crazy. We have the Munkidori, which I did not use that turn. Slight misplay on my part, I do believe, but nothing too crazy. It does not change the outcome overall. But we didn't really like Munkidori. The idea was save the Munkidori damage to see if it ever mattered, but really it didn't. We ran 2 Munkidoris and 2 Dark Energies at the beginning. Ended up taking those out entirely, just that way we'd run 2 Water Energies, 1 Lightning, and 7 Psychics. We ran 5 Psychics at the beginning because that's enough to attack with Drifloon, but only like once. And then if all these Psychic Energies are on Drifloon and your opponent like retreats or bosses out something else, then technically you can't get the energies back, so it was just bad. We also learned right here that Crispin, if you use Crespin's ability, or if you use the trainer support or whatever, if you use Crispin and you only have 1 energy in your deck, you can get it out, but it goes to your hand. Because the second energy is supposed to attach to one of your Pokemon by the way that it reads. So we learned right there, you know, Super Rod first, put energies back in, then Crispin. This second game was more of a, I want to show you guys the deck that we played against rather than show you more of what Kirlia, or what Gardevoir and Sylveon can do. Because Uxie has a 1 energy attack that does the same thing as the old Mesprit, or not Mesprit, but the old Misdreavus does. 1 energy, 2 damage on all of your opponent's Pokemon. And then the combo is using the Cofagrigus, which is a 1 energy, place 6, or I think it's do 60 damage to all Pokemon on the board, including your own, that have abilities. Uxie, Azelf, and Cofagrigus don't have abilities, so it just places 6 damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon that have damage or that have abilities. And then Uxie adds more damage to that, and then Azelf, which is the last Pokemon, is a 2 energy psychic attack that states, for every damage counter on your opponent's board, this attack does 10 more damage. So based upon how much damage your Cofagrigus has put up, now all of a sudden your Azelf swings really hard. Learning that, unfortunately, at a bad time, it does eat our Kirlias alive. So unfortunately, we set ourselves back a little bit, and to avoid that, we just evolve our Eevees and our Kirlia, so that way we don't have that issue. You left me ring on. And you were snoring very loudly. I love you, I'm sorry. I just don't want to record it. So we were trying to stay away from having Cofagrigus do too much damage. Obviously, Gardevoir and Kirlia both take damage because they both have abilities from Cofagrigus. But we decided now is the best time to do this. So luckily we drew into Gardevoir here, so we don't need to lose Kirlia, so we can just remove everything else. We're not using Drifloon. They have too little HP for that to matter. And so now Gardevoir, instead of being Kirlia, now will not die on the next move. We discard, we set up, we think about it like we could remove Cofagrigus, but better yet, we could also just remove the Uxies, and then if he doesn't have another Pokemon on bench, we can just win the game the turn after. Crispin helps me set up the Sylveon, getting 1 Manual Energy, 1 Crispin Energy, and 1 Gardevoir Energy to use Angelite to just remove the 2 Pokemon. The minus, 100 damage doesn't matter on this because we knock everything out in a single hit anyway because I'll have no HP, but it does still matter in a little bit because damage counters. We use Buddy-Buddy Poffin, realize there's nothing left, so we take a knockout and hope for the best here because he only has 2 cards left in his hand. And Buddy-Buddy Poffin, because now he gets his entire bench back. And by entire, I mean 2. So, like I said before, Azelf does big damage. We can use Angelite here because we did use Magical Charm last turn. And looking at it in 2020, vision, hindsight, definitely would have been a better move to send the Yamask and the Uxie back into the deck, and then let him take a knockout, and then we can just Gardevoir set up knockout Azelf, because they only had 1 card left in hand, and we haven't seen a singular item from them the entire time, so. And we also brought up Yamask rather than Uxie, which Uxie would have been way better, because I figured, okay, he needs an energy and a Cofagrigus in order to set this up, otherwise he just needs an energy to do damage. But my tiny little pea-sized brain does not understand the deck that I was up against. Why not just use the Uxie and bring back and get, because Cofagrigus is much more dangerous because of the fact it's able to hit for big damage, for 60 damage, which knocks out both Kirlias. So my little pea-sized brain just decided to forget what the bigger problem was. He was able to also utilize his entire 1-card hand and his draw into getting Cofagrigus Energy Bomb. I realize now, what am I gonna do? Gardevoir, unfortunately, if I put an energy on it, it takes 2 damage. So it's at 200 and 200 damage. It only has 110 HP left, and Bomb would knock it out. Same thing with Sylveon, where if I hit it, I get knocked out by the Bomb. I don't have a way to get rid of the Bomb. I don't have a way of dealing small damage. I don't have another way of getting another Pokemon on the board in 1 move without Crispin or something. So, not super great. We actually get to go into sudden death for a funny reason. But that's okay, because we opened Eevee and win the game, because Eevee Sylveon. Sylveon has no ability, so Cofagrigus can't do damage to it. Uxie only does 2 damage per turn, which is nothing compared to 270 HP, who can then also swing for 160. And Azelf will only ever do enough damage to do anything after Uxie puts up like 100 damage, and it's never going to survive 5 turns when I have so many energies in the list. So this deck does not do very well in sudden death, but mine does if I know what I'm up against. Like I said, all of our matches are live starting on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, starting as early as 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, hey, check it out. I might be live over at twitch.tv/videogames. Also, our opponent hit us with an Iono, which sets us both to 1, and I ended up just drawing into the Arven, which allows me to go Earthen Vessel, find my energies, and Crystal, which allows me to get this, and I could use Angelite if I wanted to. I'm not going to, because I win the game, but still, Arven times 4, pretty good. Coin flip tails, and our opponent goes first. Oh, this is when we started it. Okay, so we added Radiant Alakazam, seeing as our Sylveon hit for 160. Usually the second hit would kind of get nothing, because we normally do enough damage to get a knockout on the second hit with only like 80 damage or something like that. So we would move damage counters over to do more value. But it never mattered, and realistically, Alakazam was just bad. So he was another card that was thrown in for testing and then immediately ripped out for being just awful. Since we took out the Monkey Dories, we took out the Alakazam, we took out certain things. We also take out the TM Devolution because we don't need to devolve our opponent when we can just send it back to the deck anyway. The Monkey Dory is meant to put damage counters down, and then you can Devo to remove. You can knock out Pokemon that way with the Devolution. I rather didn't want to do that when instead I could just use Angelite to put 2 Pokemon back into my opponent's deck anyway, which just was better because doing it like a third time to your opponent just makes them enraged. We do have a solid combination here. We have Eevee, we got the Crown, we got a Kirlia to discard and draw more, we got Crispin to give energies to one of our Pokemon, we have Arven if we wanted to, in order to get a item and a tool, like Bravery Charm, if I didn't already had it on Drifloon, so I guess it's just kind of thinning. Or Devolution, which I can throw away, but whatever. We were looking around for like everything we had. Our board state was kind of mid at best. But compared to my opponent's board state, which was just a Blissey, a Pikachu, and a bird, I think we're doing pretty good. We now have 2 Kirlias on the board, and Sylveon with a Crown, with 1 energy out of its 2 that it would need, because Crown, you know, is one of them. And our entire opponent's board is just kind of bad. He has no plays to make. Let's go again, where we can now discard a bunch of just things. With Kirlia, we can Ultra Ball, find Gardevoir, use a retreat, bring out Sylveon, Crispin gives me my energies I need. 1 card goes to hand, the other one goes on to the Pokemon, and now I just have a water energy I can discard because it's no longer necessary to get more things. Kirlia, again, gets to discard even more things. Getting all those energies into the discard pile, so my Gardevoir could work if I needed to, is great. Because we do have the Drifloon, so once all the psychic energies are in there, that makes Drifloon attack for 300. We're just in a good position. We use Angelite to get rid of his Pikachu and his Pheasantipity, even though we haven't knocked anything out yet. Him hitting with an Iono, we still have 6-6, so Iono is not a threat. It feels just good that we can control the board state. If our opponent can't do anything, we can use Boss's Orders and then put things back. Or if we're losing, we can use Counter Catcher and then put things back that just don't matter. Like, we don't like this Blissey, we don't like that Pikachu. I can't use Angelite this turn, so we manually retreat to knock out the Drifloon. I mean, knock out the Blissey. We're just looking for things to do. We're just looking at all the different cards we can get, thin decks out, because we're going to be using a bunch of Ionos, which we still have, where our opponent does not have those. So if we thin things out, it makes it better for us in the long term. We find our Gardevoir, which we knew we had with an Ultra Ball at like the beginning of the turn. We set up the Drifloon with all of the energies necessary. I think we ran 6 or 7 at this point. And so we had everything we had or needed. Set up Sylveon once again so I can use it again right afterwards. And then Balloon Blast, take 300 damage. Now, next turn, I can still use Angelite, so I have to remember I have Angelite's ability. But like I said, this is still early in testing. This is like, you know, I don't know how many games in, but it was not many. So there were still many ways where I made misplays. I make mistakes during the stream because I'm still learning the list with chat, realistically, to figure out what we can do to make it better. What's the different ladders we can climb to do different abilities, different concepts. My opponent just uses a Turbo Energize here on a Pikachu. To set up 2 energies. And you know what? What we could have done here, which would have been a really smart move, was we have bosses in hand. We just go boss, and then we bring up either Chansey or Radiant Greninja, I think it was. Yeah, I brought up the Chansey, and then we hit it. So I should have retreated the Drifloon, and then brought up Sylveon, and then Sylveon, Pikachu, and Greninja back into the deck. I got rid of the Chansey, so that way the energy was kind of stuck on the Radiant Greninja, and he couldn't move it over. So now it's just like he's got no cards left. So now if we just start hitting him, the game would end. It would have been better if I did Angelite, because then he would be just down to a Radiant Greninja or a Chansey in the active. The Chansey in the active would have been better. And then put the other cards back into his deck, and he would have nothing left anyway. But we learn, and we grow, and we do better. Somehow I hit a mulligan. Into 2 Ralts. Pretty good. Oh, and just a reminder, 2 things. Number 1, they did update the timer. If you guys haven't noticed, instead of 25 minutes on both sides, it is now 20 minutes on both sides, which honestly, fantastic. I didn't think 25 minutes were ever really necessary, but putting it at 20 does really, really hurt those players who try and play stall tactics. So I appreciate that a little bit more. And because in a best of 1, you don't need 40 minutes. Like in a best of 3, you need 50 minutes, sure. But in a best of 1, it's like maybe 30 minutes at best would be all you would really need. And then, oh yeah, right. And 2. Actually, I forgot where I was going with this. Anyway, oh yeah, the speed. The speed of the video is at 2.5 times its original speed, and we played the game. We streamed this for like 3 or 4 hours to learn a good list for the Gardy Sylveon list. We even tried Screamtail for a little while. That just did not fly. But it was totally an entertaining factor because we got to play with so many players. We got to give away a bunch of Surging Sparks codes and, you know, learn a whole lot about the deck. I know that I really, really like it, so. Anyway, back to the gaming. Our opponent actually hits us with Monkey Dory, which is really bad against Drifloon, obviously, because Drifloon needs damage counters in order to do its big swing anyway. So losing out on HP doesn't really do anything, so you really want to just knock it out if you're going to knock it out anyway. I think our opponent banked on hopefully having us, like, attack and then knock ourselves out or something to give him a free move. But instead of that, we were just going to do a whole bunch of other things, like, you know, we don't need Evo anymore. We can just set up Sylveon in a way, because, you know, Eevee just went down, but if it goes to the active, we can evolve it via the ability into Sylveon EX. So now we have big Pokemon, which makes it very hard for him to kill unless he uses Poltergeist, which we have nothing in our hand, making it very, very good for us. So we set up our defensive Sylveon, we set up Drifloon with, you know, however, with its a little bit of HP, it only needs 2 energies from the discard now with Gardevoir's ability, and now it has, you know, 100 damage on it, so it hits for its, you know, 300 that it's going to hit for anyway, as long as I get a Buddy-Buddy Poffin on it. Or a Bravery Charm on it. Which I think is... Nope, that's a Buddy. But, yeah, our opponent can stop us from using items, but we already have a Gardevoir on board, we already have a Kirlia for discard draw, we have a Sylveon for our Angelite, we have just far too much going for us anymore that items don't matter. Items helps us set up the board, but when our board is already set up, stopping me from using items, not super great. The only thing that I do wish that I still had access to would probably be Super Rod if he were to take knockouts, but if he's just using item lock, then it's not a good thing to have. I did look for Crown, because if I was able to go get the... sorry, not Crown, but Crystal. If I was able to get the Sparkling Crystal, Sylveon has the ability to use Angelite, and I wanted to do it, didn't get there. Unfortunately, he did use the Monkey Dory's ability to move damage counters off the Bayonet and over onto our Drifloon, so we lost our Drifloon. Didn't really worry about it that much. This didn't make as much sense. So when we use the the Magical Charm from Sylveon, it makes our opponent's Pokemon do 100 less damage. That is the Bayonet that was inactive. So he used Prime Catcher in order to retreat and then bring out the Bayonet again just to do 30 damage. Because I can still use the ability of Gardevoir in order to set ourselves up, which is, you know, good and dandy. We drew all of our energies, so, you know, very easy to just find energies that we need to get the retreat off and then just bring back out the Sylveon. I think our opponent just kind of hoped we didn't find it more than whether or not we did find it. Another Kirlia. Our board state is 3 Kirlias, a Gardevoir, a Drifloon, and Sylveon, who is able to just start hitting for 160 or use Angelite if it wanted to with a singular Crispin. I can find the water energy and then manual the electric energy to the board. Oh, that's right. My opponent did use a Turo to get the Ralts on the board. We just kind of do nothing here, which is great. This was a turn where I think I could have used Angelite and then didn't, and I regretted it. Because seeing the board state and me being, like, ahead, like, a boss's orders into an Angelite would have been crazy. Because I could have put the electric energy on Sylveon, but I didn't. And then I regretted it because I'm like, oh, if I find a water energy, I could just use Angelite. put Mew and Kirlia, or Bayonet and Kirlia back into our opponent's deck, and then he just has no draw engine. There's a positive and a negative to, like, not being able to use the items, is I want to use Kirlia to discard things, but then there's also, like, the ability my opponent can use Poltergeist, which could be a problem. I should have counted how many Ionos I had left versus how many were in the deck, and then I could have used Kirlia to try and do a couple of draw options, where I could have used an Iono to thin my hand to something really, really small, by using Kirlia to discard the extra items that I couldn't use anyway, or trainers that I couldn't use anyway, and that way if I drew into it, it would have just been, like, Pokemon, but blocking items doesn't stop me from winning the game once I'm already set up. If you block items on turn 1, then yes, I can't use Buddy-Buddy Poffin, I can't use, like, Arven's item, I can't do a lot of things, but once I am set, item lock does nothing. We have a positive win rate into Raging-Bolt Ogerpon, positive win rate into evolution decks, positive win rate into item locking, because item lock is one thing, but, like, retreating is a totally different thing, where it's hard to lock Pokemon in the active against Gardevoir, except for Block-Lax, but even Block-Lax does not matter because you don't put down Gardevoir in that situation. Then you just put down Sylveon and then just keep moving your opponent's Pokemon back in their hand, hitting them with an Iono. So, just a thought. This matchup was painful. I'm sure that you have, if you play any Pokemon TCG Live, you have run into this list already with the Charcadet and the Ceruledge combo, where it just uses 100 cards and abilities in one turn to throw away the entirety of the deck, just so that way you are able to set up one energy Charcadet, one energy Ceruledge, which can just swing for 300, which is really good, really strong. But also, like, I don't know, it just feels like throwing away 90% of your deck for one thing is kind of, like, really odd. And also, I feel like it would lose to a mill deck, and I feel like if a lot of people are playing Ceruledge, like, a mill deck might be really good in the meta right now to counter it if it's, like, becomes, like, one of the better decks of the meta. It's still weak to water. It still technically does take a turn or two to set everything up. So, like, if you're running a water deck, you can counter it really easily, because, like, 270 is not that much with a very common attribute. You know, Palkia just kind of exists. And you do have to set up a bunch of supporter Pokemon, like Pheasantipity, like Squawkabilly, and you can still use Hoothoot and Noctowl, because Ceruledge is considered a Terra Pokemon. So, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little too gimmicky, where, yes, it's strong, but I feel like it's only good at doing one thing. And outside of that one thing, I feel like it just doesn't do anything else. I mean, I like the fact that they gave Ceruledge a 1 energy, 30 damage, plus 20 for each energy in the discard pile, and then gave it a 3 different colored energy, 280. But it's awful, because why would I not just use the 1 energy that can still do more than 280? And I just build a deck around the 1 attack rather than 2. So you guys already saw Noctowl. That was a rigid band. I completely forgot that was in that list. But yeah, the rigid band makes Ceruledge have 300 HP. But you can see this board state just has 2 Ceruledge. We have Sylveon and an Arven in our hand, and a Gardevoir as well. So if Ralts just dies here, well, too bad. We're at 4 prizes. But look at our board state versus our hand. Countercatcher, Arven, and Gardevoir. Yeah, Crystal Earthen Vessel. I need certain energies. Okay, well, Earthen Vessel can give me them. I need a water or a lightning. Discard 1, finds a water energy. Water energy. Crystal. Plus I can use Countercatcher, where I can bring one of my opponent's bad Pokemon up. I did think about it. I wanted to put up the Pheasantipity because it's a 2-prizer. So if I do knock it out, I guess still get 2 prizes. Our opponent only has 2 cards in hand, so it's, like, really good for us too, because we are still able to set up the Gardevoir 1 energy and then still be able to attack. We wanted to set up our energies back so I can use another Sylveon, if this one does get knocked out, I can still get the energies, so I can use Sylveon and or Drifloon. So again, Drifloon can hit big damage if I just have the combo pieces. Kirlia was a discard for basically nothing. And Angelite just goes, goodbye, extra evolution Pokemon. Send it back to the Shadow Realm. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand. My opponent here knew that the counter to Angelite was just putting down 3 basics, which was very smart because Angelite can only get rid of 2 only every other turn. So he just doesn't set up too many things, and it just works in his favor. Hooray, Bravery Charm. 2.5 times speed, by the way. When I freeze up, I'm like, ooh, can't believe I did that. Look at that. Double Drifloon, double Bravery Charm on board with all of our Psychic Energies, I think, at our disposal. We hit the 160. Technically, Pheasantipity is minus 100 damage this turn. Pheasantipity obviously is not attacking, so it does not matter. I wonder if... Something I'm going to have to read now, because Sylveon says technically the opponent's Pokemon does 100 less damage, but does it do it only to the active? I didn't read the active part. Anyway, continuing the game, Kirlia is just going to help us draw out more things. We can use Angelite, but we don't want to use Angelite. Mainly due to the factor of we're unsure if he has the evolution in his hand, and if he does, the last one doesn't matter. But we're also like trying to keep track of his items and energies. We have never used this deck before this matchup, the Ceruledge deck, I mean. So I didn't know how many energies or what the idea of the deck was. So since I didn't know, at the time, I attacked in to get 2 prizes. I should have just used Angelite because he would need an energy to retreat, and they don't run any switching cards. So he would need an energy on Pheasantipity to retreat, and another energy on Charcadet in order to attack. Since he had no energies on the board, he couldn't do anything else out of that. They do run Gen Energy as a, quote, switch, but Ceruledge's actual first attack is 1 fire energy, not a colorless, so it would never have been able to switch in and attack in the same move. We are still able to set up Sylveon though, so we don't really care that much. And we know how much damage he was doing as well. It's minus 100, so if we hit him with Magical Charm, we can still get that minus 100 and be totally safe. Oh no, wait. I think I played around if he had more energies in this instance, that's right. Because I was able to set up Drifloon, and that way even if he takes a knockout on the Drifloon, it's still more value to me than them. Because I am able to get 2 prizes, they take 1 off the Drifloon, and then I have Sylveon set up already, so it's just game from that point. Two prizes apiece. I have a Drifloon on bench and a Drifloon inactive. Both of them can do 300 damage, so it doesn't make that big of a deal as to what he tries to deal with. I'm able to one-shot everything, so he would need to use a boss's orders or something to bring up my 2 prizer and one-shot it with Ceruledge, 1 energy to win the game. This will be our last, I think this is our last matchup here. Pretty sure. I could be wrong. I think this was another Ceruledge matchup, which just gives you a little bit more of an idea as to what Ceruledge does and how you can play around it with Sylveon. I think this match more than last match because of the fact that they use so many different tools, especially this one used the Palkia, the other one did not. It used so many different tools that you have to learn how to play around those tools. Palkia and Greninja make the matchup really, really rough. Because obviously, if you look at my board state, if my opponent just has Palkia V-Star and 3 water energies, he is still able to use Palkia V-Star, 3 water energies, take out Ralts, and the game can literally end right there. Like, this will do nothing overall, which after this game is the reason we took out Radiant Alakazam, because opening it is bad. If at least it was a Ralts in the active, or something else, it doesn't matter what it would have been. Anything besides Radiant Alakazam, it would have been better. Coin flip removes Kirlia here. So again, like I said, I wasn't paying attention to how many water energies are in the discard pile. At least 1 right there. But if he has, oh there it is, 2. I think that was 2. There was a brief moment. I'm not gonna go back for it, but I believe there's 2 energies in the discard pile, and that was a legacy energy right there. So if he finds a 3rd water energy to put in the discard pile, he had every ability to go Palkia V-Star with that Ultra Ball, get 3 energies on Radiant Alakazam, manual attach 1 to Ceruledge, and then retreat, and then knock out both Kirlias, and then I would be able to do nothing. I set up another energy on the Alakazam specifically so that way when it gets knocked out, I am able to get energy in the discard discard pile for Gardevoir to be able to use its ability. Our hand looks incredible if we had an Eevee and then we found one. So things tends to start popping off. Unfortunately, we have Gardevoir in hand, Sylveon in hand, Arven, so I can still search an item in a tool, Crispin in order to get energies onto Sylveon if I don't already have them, like the lightning energy I'm holding, and a lightning energy, so I can just go lightning energy on Sylveon, Gardevoir from hand on the board, Gardevoir gives a psychic energy to Sylveon, Angelite immediately. So, I don't think my opponent ever had enough energy. I think he only ever had 2 when it came to water. Now he has a 3rd. I think he's going to look for the Palkia V-Star, and I don't think he has it. And he is just thinning bosses into my Sylveon because he can do exactly 270 damage. Should not have put the crystal down. That's my own fault. Again, we were only playing Sylveon on the first day of this event, or the first day of the release, so we didn't play Ceruledge. We didn't know they didn't have any Lost Vacuums in the deck, or any way, or Jamming Tower even, just to stop tools. So I put it down expecting like an Iono or something, or Hand Disruption of some kind. And later we found out there is no Hand Disruption. There's only discard my hand to draw a new card, discard my hand to draw a new card. So it didn't change anything. And I should not have put down the crown, because the crystal, because the crystal ended up being better if it was in my hand, because I could have actively put it on the next Eevee, but whatever. We were still able to set up Angelite the long way, get rid of both Ceruledges, because we haven't seen Palkia, so we were not afraid of Palkia at the time. And I believe its max damage is 260 if it has a full bench, and we have 250 HP. So he may or may not have the opportunity to get a full bench and the energies needed for Palkia. 1 energy on the Squawk ability, and then 2 energies to retreat, or 2 energies on Palkia V-Star to attack, but it still wouldn't have been enough. Like right now it's 240, which is not enough by 10, which is good. We're able to stall with that. There it is. So we did have it in the deck. He didn't find it early game. And when he needed it, he didn't have enough energy, so we didn't go after it. He just went with the Ceruledge. So that way he can now do this, which can remove Kirlia and Eevee, or Kirlia and Drifloon. Forgot which one he took out. I assumed it was the I think it's the Drifloon. No. Would have been better to get rid of Drifloon, because Drifloon can hit 300 damage to take out Ceruledge. Eevee doesn't really matter. I assumed that he thought like my entire essence of the deck was just hitting with Sylveon, when it wasn't. We can still use a lot of power, like, moves here, so we're going to discard, we're going to get energies out, we're going to use setup plays to, you know, set things up for later. Iono, my opponent's down to 1 card in hand. We have now set up a wonderful Drifloon with 120 HP, so we can hit the 100 or 300 damage threshold. Sylveon just, you know, now he opens a research. He has 2 cards left in his entire deck. He does know that he can get Charcadet set up, but I think the last 2 cards of his deck were both Ceruledges, or at least 1, because he could have evolved here and then didn't. I don't really know what that would have done. I guess he could have hit for 20 on something, but I'm not sure what. So we're kind of good. I could knock out this Charcadet here, which wouldn't have been a bad move, but I also can just bring up the Palkia, Angelite, remove the energy and the Pokemon. I think I was running low on cards too when it comes to the deck, but I think I always had more than him. But I was just making him use resources. That's the entire idea. Using Angelite forces your opponent to either slow their gameplay or make them use resources. And when they're out of resources, you can just literally whittle away that 160. So, like, Lumineon shows up, sure. What does that do? Nothing. Pal Pad for bosses is usually pretty good. And it was Briar as well. I don't know what the Briar was for. He's down to 1 prize. I think he just didn't have another option, so he went with the Briar. And I'm able to Magical Charm 160, but Palkia has no way of getting 2 water energies on it now because he's put them all in the discard pile. He's used the V-Star power. I don't know why Drifloon has to come up here. I think what he wanted me to do was use the Gardevoir to set up Drifloon for damage or something like that, and then punch me with Charcadet. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he was thinking Magical Charm 160 was bad. I don't know. I just go with the Angelite because now he has to find an energy, find a Charcadet, and then find Ceruledge with no draw engine. So now he's got no Charcadet on the board, so I can hit him just with this. And then if he puts down a Charcadet, I can use Angelite to put them away. So he has to get all 3 Charcadets right now onto the bench if he wants to stop that specific play. So I think he should have put Squawkabilly in the active here, because Squawkabilly I can't use Magical Charm to not, or I can't use Magical Charm in that case because then it would knock him out and he would get a free switch. But this way I'm able to hit up the 160, leaving him with 10 HP. So he can set up, but then he can't retreat, and now it doesn't matter because he's got 0 cards in deck. I just hit him anyway. Bye-bye, Fishy. I think if he puts up the Squawkabilly, I would have had to just pass the turn. And then it just would have been weird, and if I did attack, he could have just got the free switch in. Charcadet evolve, 1 hit, 1 energy knockout game. So, let me go back to the deck list one more time, so you guys can take a look at this one more time. I super enjoyed playing this deck. Once I learned it and, you know, practiced it a little bit, like after my, like, 10th to 15th game or something like that, I started learning the combinations a little bit more proactively. And again, this is the final list. This is one that we used for actually grinding ladder and doing really well with it. So I would definitely say you should give this one a try if you're in the idea of trying to use the Sylveon. It's actually a lot of fun angel lighting your opponent, and then they have to use 27 resources only for you to go, neat. Do it again, Angelite. I don't know how, I should have had a counter for how many times I actually used Angelite during the gameplay footage, but it's a lot of fun. I would rate this deck very highly because it can counter so many things, so many different ways. A good Angelite can stall your opponent for so many turns. Just Iono your opponent to 1, 2, 3 cards or something like that, and then hitting him with an Angelite to get rid of all their good stuff. It just feels so good. Anyway, guys, I'll be showing you guys another video in a little bit, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you guys can get more updates for more videos on Surging Sparks, so that way you guys can probably find something a little bit more fun. We have a lot of meme videos for decks that I think are going to be so much fun to play coming up pretty soon, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.